Welcome back, everybody. We had to find a nice place to film another culture conversation, and we selected the Hub Diner. Here they have free Wi-Fi and a good selection of coffees and smoothies and other food items. Welcome back to The Bridge Effect. Today we are going to have another culture conversation with none other than Mr. Bleejay Innis. Please go ahead and introduce yourself and tell the people who you are, what you do.
My name is Bleejay Innis. I am obviously originally from Liberia, born in Liberia, left Liberia when I was 6 years old during the war, and graduated with an international business degree from undergrad from the University of Massachusetts, and then went on to do my master's at Georgetown University in international real estate development and finance. I'm now working in Liberia and working in the construction industry in Liberia and real estate development. In a nutshell, that's who I am and what I do.
Perfect. We're just gonna chat about the whole moving back aspect of coming, being in America for so long, having to leave your home and in your space of real estate with what you're doing right now.
Okay.
So if you could just kind of paint the picture of your decision and mindset in moving back and that process that you went through.
Well, I would say Liberia has always been at my heart. Liberia has been a passion of mine for a long time. So, ironically, my name, Bleejay, it's a Bassa name. My name, Bleejay, means for home's sake or for the sake of my home. So essentially, how people have a saying that your name uses you. Mm-hmm. So, I feel like my name has always used me, and I've always had a passion for Liberia. And ever since going back to America, I've just always had a burning desire to want to come back home and contribute in some way, given my experiences and the education that I got abroad. So when I graduated from college, it was my first time coming back to Liberia since I left during the war. And it was what
year was that?
This was 2011.
Okay.
Yeah, so 2010, 2011. Okay. It's my first time coming back since I left during the war. And I'll tell you, it was such an emotional experience for me, just being back on the soil for the first time since leaving in such a dramatic fashion. Yeah. And when I got on ground, I fell in love with the country all over again. Things weren't perfect. Things were, like on a rebuilding process, and they are what they are in Liberia. But I fell in love with the country again, and I kind of told myself from that point that I want to move back home. And I started preparing myself mentally, physically, emotionally for that process. Mm-hmm. Started coming back to Liberia 1 time a year, 2 times a year, 3 times turned to 4 or 5 times. And the rest is history from there. And I made the decision that once I graduated from grad school that I was going to come back home full time. So finish my master's, and a few months later packed my bags and moved back home to start in the industry I was working in the company that I'm running here.
It didn't take you long after graduation to just be like, out of here?
Oh no, I was already like at work, the 9 to 5. I was checked out mentally of the 9 to 5.
When you have Africa on your mind, seriously, you're checked out. You can't do anything.
You can't focus at all. At all.
So in the space that you're working in now in Liberia, how did you lay that foundation down first before you got here?
Well, so a lot of people don't know this story. So if anyone ever needed confirmation whether or not you're supposed to be doing what you're supposed to be doing or where you're supposed to be, I got that confirmation in the way that I came back to Liberia so fast. So I was working in the real estate development industry in Washington, D.C., and I started building relationships with real estate professionals in D.C. and just learning their stories and how they started what they started. And I realized it wasn't rocket science. It was just, it took networks, it took persistence, and it took the right opportunities to make it happen. And I decided to partner with a friend of mine from Ghana and another friend from Liberia. And I said, hey, I want us to start a real estate investment firm that is a US-based company that will focus on the African market space.
So you did this first before
I did that
company
first.
That you're running now? Okay.
Yep, we did that first. So that was kind of how, that was my doorway back home. So that was the path that I was creating. It wasn't a company we started necessarily, wasn't just focused on Liberia. So we
Sure.
were focused on Africa as a whole, and Liberia happened to be our entry market.
Okay.
So we had a couple opportunities in Liberia that were very promising for us. We started talking to investors, and we started realizing that, hey, this thing that we started, it's looking like a real possibility, and people are excited, interested, and one of us needs to be on ground in Liberia sooner rather than later in order for this to be possible.
Okay.
So obviously that person
That
was
was
going to
you.
be me. That person was going to be me, and we got to the point where I said, okay, starting a real estate investment company, you don't have a salary. You know, if you do your first project, you're not getting paid from that.
Yeah.
You know, it's not until like your third or fourth project that you really start making some
Getting
type of
into
money.
it and everything.
So I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to survive if I leave my job and go back? Can I find a job, one in Liberia, that's going to pay me
That's
what I'm making in America?
yeah.
And then secondly, can I find something that's going to give me the flexibility that I need to do all these other things that I'm
That you
doing
want
and
to,
to
yeah.
travel back and forth?
Right.
Because my family's in America. I still have bills to pay in America. Still got an apartment I have to keep up in
he
America.
got money.
I wish. We're getting there though. But
That's
so
all right by God's grace.
yeah, no, absolutely. But you know, that's where we were in the whole process, and that was my prayer. Honestly, my prayer was, "Hey God, this is where I am. If this is what you truly want me to do and where you want me to be, open up some door." So ironically, a few weeks later, a family friend of my father gives me a call. I had met him years back in Liberia, so white guy, and met him years back in Liberia, introduced him to some business people in Liberia, and he had reached out to me just a few weeks after I made that declaration and that prayer and said, "Hey Bleejay, I know you're in the real estate space and I see what you're trying to do with your company. You may not know, but I run a successful construction firm in the US. And I have a passion for Liberia, and I want to see how I can duplicate what I did in America in
Wow.
Liberia." But he said, "Hey, I'm a white guy with kids. I can't move to
there.
Liberia.
Right,
I need a Liberian who understands how things work in Liberia and understands how things work in America to be the face of this company, to partner with me to start this." And he said, "What would it take for you to move back to Liberia and run this company?" And he said, "Whatever it is, just write it on a piece of paper and send me a message of what you're thinking." So I talked about salary, I talked about flexibility, I talked about just basically everything that I needed to be secure in making that decision at the time that I made it. And by God's grace, he accepted everything.
Wow.
So technically they made me an employee of their American company,
Okay.
so that I
You
could
would be
receive
able
the benefits and still be secure, you know, in that way.
Okay.
But in turn, I'm in Liberia running the company, so I'm the head of business development for this company and a partner in the company, and also the acting COO of the company.
Yeah.
So they entrusted a lot of faith in me and believed in me, and they basically just supported me through that process. And that's kind of how I ended up a few months after graduation. Literally, we signed an agreement, signed an offer, and I was back
What
home.
would you say as far as like real estate is concerned in Liberia? I'm trying to figure out how I want to word this, because we know that when people want to buy homes or build homes back home, they send their money and they're trusting people to do what they're sending the money home to do. How is your company intermediary for those people abroad in the diaspora that are seeking to purchase land or build their home, those people that want to move back home?
Absolutely. So that's a very, very, very important point that you made. I think one of the things that excited us about starting a construction company in Liberia was that we were trying to find out what our identity was going to be as a firm, right? So my partner in the States and I and everybody else working along with us, we said, given the current economic challenges in Liberia, given the history and experiences that people have had, how do we think we can come in and be a solution to a lot of those problems, given the fact that there are already existing construction companies in Liberia. Some of them are a lot more experienced than we are in the market. How can we come in and actually be a player? And that was a huge aspect for us. I've seen myself, my parents, friends, and other people that I know victimized by a lot of the examples that you just gave.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's no integrity when you want to do construction and you send your money to Liberia, somebody either eat the money, or if they do build the property's leaning one side, and it's done in a substandard way.
Yes.
So we have a U.S. office as well as a Liberian office,
Okay.
and we said, hey, we can position ourselves, and we want to position ourselves as a firm that people in the diaspora can trust,
Okay.
right? So even if they don't feel comfortable sending their money to Liberia, they can send it to our U.S.-based company.
Okay.
And at the same time, we are not just your uncle building your house. We're actually an established firm,
Yeah.
and we want to make people feel comfortable in every way possible. So our company, the process of inquiring about our services, everything is done professionally, and it's done systematically so that people feel comfortable with what we're doing. So we're looking to build that trust among Liberians abroad who want to do projects here, and want them to feel comfortable utilizing us as an intermediary in making that possible.
Okay. What all services do you guys offer? Are you just construction solely, or since you're in real estate, is it real estate to where you actually can go look for the land for somebody that wants to buy land, or you guys are just strictly just building and developing?
I mean, the great thing about where we are right now, we have a lot of freedom to offer various services.
Okay.
Right? So our core identity as a construction firm is we're full service. So we do architecture, we do engineering, and we do general construction services, whether it's residential or commercial or industrial, we do it all. And as we started the company, one of the biggest things we realized that people want to do projects, but the same integrity issues. A lot of people don't have land and they want to buy land. And buying land is a hassle in Liberia. If you're not on ground and if you can't fact check who owns what,
because
find out everything.
So what he's saying is basically in Liberia, multiple people can own the same land because they will sell it to 5, 6, 7,
Multiple
8
times.
different people. Then you will have to go to the town hall, or you have to go to court, and everybody got the same deeds, probably signed by the same town chief, signed by the same this.
Just frustrate yourself.
Total frustration.
Yeah.
So that is where my question came from, because that's something that happens a lot here in Liberia, to where multiple people own the same land, or you try to get the land back by court, or you pay the same amount of price to get your land back, so you're paying for your land 2 times, 3 times. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. So that's good to know. So you guys have that, I guess, wiggle room.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that we're here, and I think for Liberians abroad to understand, and young Liberians who are looking to come back home, just your presence alone is very, very powerful. The fact that we are here and we're based here, and I'm here, we have the right networks and the resources in order for us to go and achieve a lot of these things. So we've helped a few clients so far, actually in the acquisition of land. In Liberia, we're in the process of doing some for some other people as well too. So we focus on building the right relationships with the people in the right positions, that we can fact check that, hey, the person who's selling this land actually owns the land, and we can make sure that clients abroad are safe and secure in the transactions that they're making when it comes to purchasing land.
Okay. I like to always talk about the private sector because here in Liberia, a lot of the, I guess, go-to jobs, everyone wants to go into government, but important is the private sector for the different spaces that we don't have in Liberia. What do you think the importance of that is?
I think the private sector is the foundation for development and growth in Liberia. It's crucial and important. The job of government is to support the private sector, and that's a story for another day on whether the government's doing that and how they're doing that. But at the same time, you can see in Liberia right now, there are private businesses that are doing well, that are still, their doors are still open, they're still successful in their own rights, and they're still functioning as they should. And it shows that, outside of government, that the systems that are created by private sector companies are essential to the growth and development of Liberia. And we can't depend on the government to do everything. Liberia's problems are not something that just started today.
Nope.
They didn't start with George Weah, they didn't start with Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. It's been hundreds of years that the systematic issues and problems in the countries have existed. They have different variations of it, but I think it's time that more Liberians are involved in the private sector, and we see that there are greater benefits of being involved in the private sector to be able to transform our own lives and transform our society by focusing on that and taking our way from dependency on government.
Yeah. What advice would you give any young Liberian that, one, either wants to move back, enter into the private sector space, or just has an idea that they haven't really worked out into fruition? But, so I guess those are three different questions you can go. So it's kind of a lot I just gave. I just threw at you. My bad.
I think I got it.
So just to, give some of your wisdom.
I would say go with passion, but go with a plan, right? So that is a personal mantra of mine. I'm super passionate, about everything that I do. And sometimes when you're super passionate and you're driven, you don't always have a plan, right? You just go and you jump into it. You're so excited.
The fire's there.
Exactly, everything's there, and then you end up getting hit, and then like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until they get knocked out, right? So
that's a word.
So moving to Liberia is kind of the same way. I've heard horror stories of people who've come to Liberia and try to do businesses and do different things, and that was purely based on the passion that they had for Liberia, right? There's a lot of things that you need to think out and think through in that process.
Yeah.
If I was just going to move back to Liberia without securing some type of employment opportunity to take care of myself, I would probably be on my way back to America.
The level of frustration,
level of frustration would be high. I'd probably be on my way back to America right now. So, those of us who are passionate about coming back home, take your time and just be patient in laying out your plans the right way. Make sure that you are secure and make sure that you're able to sustain what it is that you're able to do, that this is not something that's temporary, because Liberia needs sustainable long-term solutions. So we can come here on a part-time basis with part-time solutions and expect things to develop and grow, long-term. So, I would say just prepare yourself. Reach out to people in your network. There are people like myself, other people outside of me who have done it before I did it. Find ways to connect with those people, whether it's through social media.
That's how I got connected with you.
Yep.
Social media. I had to enter into the DMs like, hey, listen, we're working on something. And that's really important that you mentioned that, because if Bleejay didn't have a positive social media presence, I probably would have reached out to him, right? And it's not to say that you can't, have fun in your social media, because we all have fun, but it was just like the different captions that you would use, the encouragement that you would give in your car, your car talks. I'm gonna call it a car talk.
So as a whole, I think we need to start finding ways to utilize the different platforms that connect one another. One of the biggest issues that I found out is there are a lot of Liberians that are trying to do great things, but we don't have ways where we connect with each other. Those of us who are really serious about making moves and doing things, we're all kind of in our own different spaces, and there are a lot of avenues or platforms where we can come together to be able to share ideas and resources. So I think it's huge. Before I moved back, I leaned heavily on the resource of people who were already here in Liberia. I mean, I was emailing, calling, and when I was coming to Liberia, I was setting up meetings 1 to 2 weeks ahead of time. And I was saying, hey, I want to meet with you. I had a list of people that I wanted to meet with, what I wanted to talk to them about. So that, Liberia is when you get on ground, you can get very distracted easily. So if you don't come with a plan, that's why I said come with purpose, but with a plan. Come with a plan and say, hey, if I'm visiting Liberia for 2 weeks, who do I need to meet? What do I need to execute? What do I need to achieve in that time span? And eventually the door starts opening. It's a who you know world, and I think once you associate yourself with the right people, doors start to open up. You start to get on the right track as far as ideas.
Any words of wisdom to our young Liberians?
Words of wisdom. I would say fall in love with your country. Fall in love with your country. I think right now, the growth and development in Africa, in Ghana and Kenya and all these other places, one of the things that I've seen is these people are truly in love with their country. They know who they are from an identity standpoint. And I think because we've gone through the years of war, and there was no period where we got reconnected with Liberia to really learn about ourselves and rebuild our identity. And I think it's important right now, if you don't know who you are, and if you're not confident in who you are, there's no plan, there's no direction in what you want to do. So for young Liberians, you know, like Madia said earlier, like, have fun, like your young people, have fun and do all these other things, but you know, just have focus. You know, have focus on what you want to be able to do. Coming back to Liberia is not for the faint of heart. Like it can make or break you in many ways. But if you truly fall in love with Liberia, and when you come here and you're focused and you know what it is that you want to be able to do, and you know what that identity is, what your personal identity is, and what you want to achieve out of here, the sky's the limit. And regardless of what we read on the news, on Facebook, and all these different things, we're here. People are here in Liberia. We're surviving. We're making things work, and we're trying to showcase the beauty of our country. And I would say that in the midst of chaos, there's opportunity, right? So, you know, there's a statistic that the most amount of millionaires in America are made during recession periods, right? Because people are frustrated with the current situations and they become innovative. So, you know, lack of opportunity forces you to become innovative and to create solutions. And that's where we are in Liberia. That's the space. All the other countries are developing and moving fast. And I truly believe that years from now, Liberia will probably have one of the highest amount of millionaires, successful people in the world, because we're starting from ground zero.
I'm able to receive that.
We're starting from ground zero.
Millionaires.
We got it.
I'm claiming that for myself.
We got it.
For sure.
Even though the bank account doesn't say it yet.
That's all right. We're going to get there. I just want to thank you for sitting down and chatting with me on The Bridge Effect. I have a lot of people out there that are interested in Africa, interested in Liberia, and interested in just our generation actually rising to the occasion. We are the lost generation of Liberia that really everything was really stripped from us, where we didn't have those same experiences that our parents did. We didn't get to enjoy home like our parents did. And so I think it's very important that, you know, we connect to one another, to those that were displaced in the diaspora, to those who never left, but the born and stayed. And it's very important that we create this community. That's what we need to do. It's a community. So I appreciate you for coming to speak to my online community.
Thank you guys.
And if you guys want to follow Bleejay, you can find him at
on Instagram, Mr. Mr_Innis, INNIS. On Facebook, Bleejay, BLEEJAY, Innis, INNIS. I have a Twitter, I have a Snapchat, I don't use those. Instagram and Facebook's the quickest way to reach me.
All right, perfect. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll check you out in the next video.
All right, thank you.
Bye. For more information, make sure to visit trybuchanan.com, and you can also visit their Facebook page.